good morning everybody, and I want to talk to you about a subject that I'm passionate about, which is about dyslexia. And I have a lot of experience of working with young and old, and in between, people helping with dyslexia in a number of areas. And I thought it would be useful to give a talk to help you become aware a bit more about what dyslexia might be if you're not already familiar with it. Because a lot of people they don't really understand dyslexia or think it's about one thing or another. And I want to show you how it actually can impact everything to do with how people work. And why would it be useful to you? Well, it would be useful because you might be working with somebody with dyslexia who maybe hasn't told you. They don't want to tell you because there is an embarrassment factor and so on. You might be employing somebody, and then there's a whole raft of employment law. There's also something called the Disability Discrimination Act, Part 3, which says that goods and services, access to goods and services for disabled people has to be appropriate, and dyslexia is actually included as a disability. Okay, so there's lots of issues around dyslexia that it's really important to know about and understand to help you do your work better. And maybe you're dyslexic yourself and you don't know it. So I thought, rather than me just droning on about, well, dyslexia is this, and dyslexia is that, and you all fall asleep and think, when can I go home? I believe in creative learning, I believe in experiential learning. So I put the test papers out already, and that's a joke by the way, and does anybody,
Take two.
Does anybody need a pen? I brought some spare pens if you don't. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is just a little bit of fun. The first, on the front page here, I've got dyslexia is, and then I've got like a sort of thought bubble, a speech bubble. I just want you to jot down a keyword, phrase, a book, a video, script, storyboard, whatever, about what you think dyslexia is. If you haven't a clue, that's fine, because I hope by the end of this talk you will have more of a clue. So just spend sort of 30 seconds just jotting something down about what you think dyslexia is. Oh, you were very well behaved in Hemel. What should we be
So
doing?
far.
So far.
Better class of network trials.
Okay. So, what is dyslexia then? Anybody like to venture? B?
Well, my daughter's got dyslexia, and I tell her she's got a super fast brain that gets in a muddle.
So super fast brain, but
That gets in a muddle.
it gets in a muddle. Okay, I like that. Okay, anybody else?
We have difficulty in reading and writing.
Can be difficulty in reading and writing. I think that's the classic, what people think of with dyslexia.
Yes.
Absolutely, and that absolutely can be.
I put something similar, the inability to make sense of the written word.
Yes, inability to make sense of the written word. Really good answers. It's actually a lot broader than that. So traditionally, people say, oh yeah, dyslexia, that's about where words, jumble up on the page, isn't it? It can be. My son's dyslexic. He's now 19. He's at uni. His reading and spelling are brilliant. They're better than his brother, who is not dyslexic. But it impacts him in other ways, which I'll, probably touch as we go through. There is a bit of a clue in the word, and you see I've colour-coded stuff here. So you've got dys is one colour, and lexia is another one. And have you got any Greek scholars amongst us? Come on, Angus.
This,
I
Greek
skipped
form, I've no idea.
Dys is a difficulty. So if you think like, dysfunctional, dyslexia. So difficulty with. Lexia, any guesses?
Lexicon,
Words. Yeah. So traditionally, the definition is about a difficulty with words, and that's what we tend to think about, isn't it? Swapping letters around, bad spelling, poor reading. If you have those symptoms, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're dyslexic, by the way, but it could be. But they have found that it's actually a lot broader, and there isn't time to go into why and all the whys and wherefores, but it is to do with which side of the brain is doing what, or what isn't, which side of the brain is not doing what it should be doing, just to give a layman's definition of it. So it does include a lot more, but before I unpack that, I just want you to answer a few more questions. So before that, I want you to experience what it might be to be dyslexic. Just a quick snapshot. So underneath here, I said, can you read the following quickly and see how much you understand and remember? Okay, anybody find that easy?
First one.
Reasonably.
Easier than reading normally?
First one. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So it's mirror writing, isn't it? Okay. Anyone find it a struggle?
Second one I do.
Yeah, so often the second line people find hard on the first line.
That bottom word.
Can you
use this
without
So if I've given this, so say I was, I was a managing director and you've been given a report, you're with a client and you have to quickly read this and give a response back very quickly, and you were struggling, because no doubt you slowed down your reading speed there to normal, and suddenly you looked at that, you couldn't encode it, you couldn't decode it, and you're thinking, how did you feel doing that? Isolated. Anything else? Twit, yeah.
Yeah, a bit stalled. You think, so then it kind of stops a bit. I probably noticed my breathing stopped while I was trying to cope with it.
I've got to be honest, I think the handwriting's really poor in the second line. I would just give it back.
Go on, blame the tools.
You blame somebody else, okay. More strategies.
Lack of water.
Right, it wasn't comfortable, was it? Some people said they felt irritable, they felt angry. You're put in the spot. You know you can do your job, but you're given something, it's a secret code and you can't decode it. So that could be happening to people that you're working with. They may not want to tell you that they're dyslexic, and inadvertently, it's a normal thing, isn't it? You're in a business meeting, maybe you're given a document saying, "Oh, just skim through that. What do you think?" Or contract. Let's sign this contract. You've been working with a person, you've almost clinched it, but you're given this 5-page document, word dense, and they just freeze. They don't want to know, and that might actually make them say, "Don't want to know. It's not going here." And you think, what? We've got a good rapport, we've done really well, we've ticked all the boxes, used the cliches, what's happened here? And they may not want to tell you what the issue is, or they may say, "Oh, I've forgotten my glasses." Could want that, because actually they can't deal with it. So that's just one example of actually how it might feel for them and how it could impact you. And positive, what was a positive business relationship up to that point.
Corinna, sorry, can I just ask then, is that why, I'm assuming that dyslexic people would actually be more prepared if they're going into some sort of business meeting because they've done a lot of their research and stuff first, so they don't get flustered then during the whole.
Yeah, there's a lot of hard work that goes around. I was assessing a boy yesterday, and it was actually quite sad because he was 15. Very bright, worked really hard. His mum was saying, "He's so lazy, he's so lazy. He's got, working memory issues. He may be lazy at times. He's a 15-year-old boy, but he was actually working really hard to achieve the scores he was in the assessment. And that's the kind of thing that goes on in everyday life. Form filling, reading stuff from script, all the information that comes at us. We're overloaded with words the whole time. With words is your difficulty, and that's really hard. Yeah. Okay, the next thing is I want you to experience a little bit about what it might be like to write in a non-automatic way. Now, if you're ambidextrous, you'll find this really easy. But I'd like you to pick up your pen in your non-dominant hand. No cheating, but I've noticed which hand you're writing. Okay, and I'm going to dictate something to you, and I'm going to give it quickly. I don't want you to miss anything. I want you to get it absolutely right. I'm going to test them all in a minute. So dyslexia is.
Oh, is that it?
No, I'm not saying it again. Come on, I'm going to write it.
No, this is did you say go or?
I'm not repeating it.
She said LinkedIn lunch, 21st.
A misunderstood condition. Full stop. Okay, we finished?
Hang on.
She's so slow. I thought you were clever people here. Not finished
I
yet.
can't just write with my left hand, that's the only problem.
It might be your dominant
Good,
hand.
yeah.
Okay, you don't have to finish it.
So it's
Do you
part of
get
my
the sense?
soul.
Do you get the point I'm doing?
That's fine. You read that, I
It's hard,
can't.
isn't it?
It's amazing how quick
And
you
I was
can
really,
learn.
really unsympathetic. I do not do my training like this.
I could be a doctor.
Look, it got better at the end.
I could be a doctor.
Right, yeah. So how, as I say, how was that for you?
It's a challenge.
You feel stupid straight away.
My handwriting's frustrating. My non-writing.
Well, I have to say mine is too, but yes. So again, out of your comfort zone. So that if someone who's dyslexic struggles with handwriting, which is possible, they're put in a situation. Write this, do this, or just write this report. I know a lot is more typed these days, but there are situations where you need to write things in a high pressure situation, in a job situation, maybe in a job application. We have to perform, your assessment. So they could be really good at presenting, real gift of the gab, intuitive skills, whatever. They can't write, they can't handwrite. They get the spelling wrong, they can't remember what the person just told them. They might not get the job. See? It could actually let them down. Yet they might be absolutely the person for the job, it's just the handwriting bit's not the bit that's right for them. So it's just a little bit of a snapshot to sort of get how it might feel. The things that we take for granted, things that are automatic, are not that way for people with dyslexia. Now, as I said, it is a broad condition, so it could be that their reading and spelling are fine, and it might be in other areas as well, but that's just an example of where it could impact. Okay, if you could turn over, the answers are not on the back. So, a little quiz. Okay, percentage of the population. What percentage do you think of the population is affected by dyslexia? 1, 10, 30.
I'd say
Directly
30
or
more
indirect?
than we think.
Yeah, we've got 10, we've got 30.
10,
Yeah, okay. The conservative estimate is 10%, but actually those of us who work with people, we reckon it is closer to 20%. But you know, we will sort of under-egg it really rather than over-egg it. But I think a lot of us have dyslexic tendencies. I mean, you know, the joke about, oh, I don't know my left or my right. If you don't know your left or your right, it doesn't mean you're dyslexic. You know, if your spelling's rubbish, that doesn't mean you're dyslexic. But it's the combination of symptoms and how much they cause a difficulty to you. And there are plenty of adults and plenty of very successful entrepreneurs who are dyslexic, and in fact most of the best entrepreneurs are dyslexic, and the reason for that is that there's, as Viv was saying, about they have a very fast working brain, but it's just that things like the words get in the way, you know, it slows them down. Who's affected, male or female?
Male.
Both.
Both. Okay. It is
Both
both.
males.
Yeah, both males. Children or adults?
Both.
Yeah, you don't tend to grow out of it because your brain is wired in a particular way, which you can compensate and actually really excel in positives. But you know, you learn to get around it. I think you can grow out of a bit to the extent it affects you, and that comes with maturity. Above or below average intelligence? The whole range really, but often they are above average intelligence. They're often really creative people, like intuitive people who do global thinking, really get it very quickly, intuitively. But it's the words that get in the way. So if they're having to learn in a very word-based way and then regurgitate in a word-based way, it doesn't work for them. Okay? Born with it or develop it? Tends to be genetic, tend to be born with it. You can develop it, and I think as people get older with sort of working memory and short duration, you can feel more dyslexic. And I think actually in our world where there's so much information coming at us, you can feel quite dyslexic because a lot of it's actually more, for me, it's about information processing difficulties. They've renamed dyslexia in recent years to specific learning difficulties, and the reason is because it covers a vast spectrum of symptoms. And there isn't time to go into all of it, but it is about the reading, about the spelling. Working memory is always a big issue. So how people deal with new information. So, you know, your boss fires several instructions at you, you get the first one, the last three are lost. Not that you're being thick or you're distracted, it might be, but actually you just physically cannot, or you mentally cannot take on board the instructions and process them. You have to have them in a different way, and you have to have them one at a time. There's so many ways that you can actually help someone with dyslexia if you know and you understand. So it isn't all bad news. But I think some of those talented people are dyslexics. There you go. We don't have time to do the VAK bit at the bottom, and maybe for another time. The question at the bottom that I posed, and I have done this as a foresight where I started with the question and then come back to it, is dyslexia. Do you think it's a disability, a difficulty, a disease, or a difference? Any comments? Any
Different.
That makes people different, doesn't it? I wouldn't say,
Difference.
you know, it shouldn't be a disability, it's different.
I like to think of it as a difference. It is recognised as a disability, okay, which when I assess people, it's always this two-edged sword, but yes, I think you might be dyslexic. It's like going to the doctor, you know, you're given a reason for why you are the way you are, which can be good, because then you know how to deal with it, but sometimes that can be upsetting for people as well. Yep.
So I struggle with reading and writing, and I really do. But I don't pretend to want to. I know that's not my forte. That's not where my skill set lies. So therefore, I don't look at it like a disability. I know that my asset, my ability is in different area.
Yeah.
So I don't see it as a disability. I just see it that you know that your skill set lies in a certain area.
Which we all have, don't we?
Yeah, cool. And I'm really creative. I just can't analytical stuff. Like you know, we were talking for a minute about how to do. My brain just shut down. I was like, oh, what is this?
Yes.
I was like, that's why you're good at what you do, and I have a different skill set.
Yeah.
So it's definitely got to be different.
Yeah, somebody defines dyslexia as a unique blend of talents and difficulties, which actually affects us all. But the difference is it can be around words, it can be around the spoken word, it can be around the written word. So it is things like reading and writing, and it is things like, you know, verbal instructions as well. And it's organisation. It also affects time management, direction, left and right. There's like 72 different possible symptoms, and I have checklists and I do assessments, and you know, that's a way of actually drilling down to what's going on. But it is about the fact there's usually part of the brain, I wouldn't say is deficient. Again, this mother yesterday went out and said to herself, well, you've got to work hard now because you've got a deficiency. No,
Really?
I'd actually worked really hard to be positive. This poor boy is going home now thinking, you know, I'm a freak. You know, it's so sad. You know, because actually he's very bright and he just needs this extra bit of support.
Can you acquire this through injury?
Yes.
You can have a head injury, because
Yes.
I've got a friend that fell off a building.
Yeah.
And he's struggled massively now with stuff like that.
And also other learning difficulties, so dyspraxia, ADHD, they often have, you know, dyslexic-type tendencies. In one sense, I'm less concerned about the label, it's more how people are processing information. So just bring it back quickly to the workplace, because I know my time is up. A lot of the workplace now is about information, isn't it? I mean, a lot of us offer services rather than goods, but even if you are offering goods, you've got a website that needs to be accessible, needs to be dyslexia friendly. You know, flyers, communications, emails, are they dyslexia friendly? Probably not. You know, and I can offer advice on all of that. You know, forest of words. And if you get an email that's sort of, you know, 2 screens worth, word dense, I don't want to go there. And someone who's dyslexic will probably not even bother. So just a few adjustments in terms of your colour, changing the font, bullet points, white space, whatever, can make the difference between you actually working with somebody or not and getting that business. I'm sure my time is up. Maybe time for 1 or 2 comments, Tony?
So, what percentage in your experience of people who've got very bad handwriting are actually dyslexic?
Well, it's more a case of the people that I see come to me because they are probably dyslexic and then their handwriting's poor. So I never looked around at everybody's handwriting and said, oh, my handwriting's bad, therefore you're dyslexic. So I don't know where the study, because there's so many different studies, and because it's all so subtle, the interplay, and that's part of the issue. People don't.
Yeah, I'm
like
just wondering whether it's a symptom of a guy I've got
It can
working
be.
for me whose handwriting is almost
Absolutely,
illegible.
because it's about the layers of processing going on in the brain, how you're processing the language, and the handwriting bit is the overload point often for some people. They can type it, they can read it, they can spell it. When they have to handwrite it, the brain goes into short circuits.
Can I ask a very simplistic question following on from that handwriting one?
Yeah.
If handwriting is an indicator of potential dyslexia,
Yeah.
are there any other clear signs? Could you, in your experience, have you kind of met somebody and within 2 minutes you thought they might
Oh, I
be,
get a sense, but you know, it's like because you work with people,
Yeah.
so I can actually sense.
just the way they think, the way they act? Is
Yeah,
that-
yeah. And how they're interacting and how
Am
they're
I
processing
dyslexic?
stuff. I've often wondered. No, maybe you just don't take time to proofread your stuff. But, you're in a hurry. No, I obviously can't cover it in 10 minutes. So, but obviously I'm happy to talk to anyone after.
Is there a way for people to be a little bit more creative with their writing? Because I use a thing called mind maps.
I use mind mapping a lot. It's one of my things.
Has anyone ever heard of mind maps before? It's like you create the bubbles and stuff. Like bubbles sound great to me. I like that. Sounds great. Is that a really good way for people that are dyslexic
Absolutely.
to get thoughts down
Absolutely.
to paper?
You need to look at my website. You need to have a one-to-one.
Yeah.
I know.
You need to look at like the thing that Corinna's got on there now, which she has a mind map on.
This is my talk.
This is really good for anyone, I think.
This is my mind map on my talk, and I
Yeah.
can't even refer to it because I've mind mapped it.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
one of my other hats, but it's not a sales pitch, so I can't talk to
Okay.
that. Right, is my time up? Probably is. I hope it's been interesting.
Yeah,
If you want to chat
yeah.
more, then please
it's
talk
really
to me.
good.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Excellent, and what a great first foresight for this occasion.